Good afternoon and welcome to our Watershed Advisory Committee meeting for today for the Cuyahoga River South Watershed. I'd like to introduce Myron Borchertz, who will begin today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Welcome everybody to the October 2020 Watershed Advisory Committee meeting for the Cuyahoga River South. I just wanted to thank you all for making time this afternoon for second annual meeting, and I hope that you enjoy it and that you get something out of it. Because we are not all in the same room today, I wanted to just go over the folks that will be presenting for us today. As they are presenting, they will be introduced again, but I just wanted to quickly go over them. I'm going to kick us off, and then I'm going to hand it over to Frank Greenland, the Director of Watersheds. Then Lila is going to, the Project Manager for Property Acquisition, will go into some of the property acquisition work we've been doing. Kovalchik is our Stormwater Project Specialist, and then he's going to talk about a new program that we are formally starting up next year. Rachel Webb, our Senior Project Manager, will talk a little bit, give us an update on the Cuyahoga River South Master Plan. Christina Celia is our Stormwater Inspector, and she'll give us a presentation on where the SWIM team, the Stormwater Inspection and Maintenance team, is with work for 2020. Then we have a special guest, Kevin Fries, who's the Program Manager at the Cuyahoga County Office of Emergency Management, who will give us a little presentation about the work that he does and how that relates to all of us on the call. And then Anthony Calvage is our Stormwater Manager for Construction. He'll end us off with an update on the design and construction program. Also on the call, who will not be presenting from the district, is Claire Posius from our Stormwater Inspection and Maintenance Group, George Reams, Jeff Jowett, Jen Elting, John Bauer, Kelsey Amido, Kim Kolish, Kristen Boucher, Mark Link, Nicole Valise, and I believe that is everybody from the district staff that's on there. So those are the folks that work within your area. They are always in the field and always out there to help. So don't hesitate to call in on any of us. Just the agenda for today. We're going to go through the Stormwater District updates. Then we're going to look at our Stormwater Master Plan and where we are. Stormwater Inspection Maintenance, what we've done this year. Also looking at September 7th event in a little bit more detail. As I said, we'll hear from Cuyahoga County Office of Emergency Management. Update from our stormwater design and construction folks on what's been done and our future plans for 2020. And then a look ahead to what we have in store for you for the next 6 months or so. Also just wanted to let everybody from the communities on the call know that due to COVID, we know that there's a lot of our customers who have needs. The district is out here. We have programs to assist our customers in helping them to pay their utility fees for wastewater and stormwater. On the wastewater side, we also, on the stormwater and water side, we also have held back on the sending delinquent accounts to the county. But for folks that owe more than $500 and has been delinquent for more than 180 days on the wastewater side, they could be sent to as delinquencies. And on the stormwater accounts, if account is not being paid for 180 days and or more, then that can be considered to be sent as a delinquent account to the county. So for program highlights, I'm going to introduce Mr. Frank Greenland, the Director of the Watersheds Programs, for his update.
Okay, thanks, Myron. I want to thank everyone for attending. 2020 has been a very challenging year for all of us, obviously. But I will say that I think our stormwater program delivery did not suffer, and our interaction with the communities has been great. But of course, it was a very challenging year from a revenue standpoint. Because of COVID, there's been some revenue shortfalls that have occurred both in stormwater and in wastewater. We were asked to cut about $6 million from our budget for the year, and that's a pretty good chunk. So certain designs and or construction projects got delayed a little bit, not halted, just delayed. And we'll see what happens. We're just starting our budget season for 21, and we'll see what revenue we have available to us to drive the program. But all of the major program elements, design, construction, operation, maintenance, master planning continued on, and the interaction with the communities continued on as well. We're right in the beginning phases of our 2022 through 26 rate study. We're going to look at both wastewater rates, stormwater fees, and establish a recommendation for our board, and that should come sometime next year, on what the fee and rate structure should be for 2022 through 26. And we will inform you at future WAC meetings on what that means for us going forward. There has been no fee increase since the inception of this program. So we're going to take a hard look at where we're at. We do know one thing: the master plans are kicking out, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. So we've got to find a way to get projects out as expeditiously as we can. So we'll report more later. The one thing I wanted to close with, 2020, we had two big rain events. One was in March. Now that was after a month of wet weather. And then we got a big rain event. It caused a lot of problems. Same thing Labor Day, different type of rain, more steady rain over a longer period of time, but still, 4 or 5 inches in many areas. More problems. We cleared more debris in those two storms than we've cleared since the inception of the program. A lot of woody timber all over the place, and there was damage, erosion, and flooding in a lot of areas of the service area. What is interesting about those, but kind of sobering, is we've got a USGS gauge network across this service area, and Big Creek and the Cuyahoga River had two storms. Both that March storm and Labor Day represent two of the highest stages, peak flows on those streams over the period of record. And the Cuyahoga's period of record is very long, so that's pretty significant to add two storms to the period of record as your highest 10 in the same year. And it's indicative of what we're seeing in terms of increasing precipitation, more spiky rainfalls, and the response to the stream, happens. So we'll have to continue to battle this for a while. I don't see any major changes. I think we're 10, 12 inches above normal this year for rain, and it's raining again. So it's just a challenge we have to meet. One of the issues, like for Big Creek particularly, it's not a hard equation. You get a lot of rain on a watershed area that has a high degree of impervious cover, you're going to see things. And we saw things. That's why we see the flooding events. So the good news is the master plans are taking a hard look at this situation and looking for areas that have what we call very low levels of service, could flood on a 1-year storm, 2-year storm, and start to bring those areas up in terms of level of service. Although our goal is a 100-year level of protection, we're not going to get there everywhere. It's just the revenue is not there, and the project viability is just not there to get there everywhere. But that is our intent, and we want to steadily get up the ranks in terms of providing more flood protection for our communities. So again, I want to thank you for attending, and there's a lot of great presentations today that will cover the work that we've been doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank. Next up is our community cost share update for October. So currently, as of December 31st, our community cost share program at $29.7 million in the account. We have 82 projects with executed agreements with about $8.4 million, 31 projects with agreements and it's in progress, about $3.4 million of those. The community cost share funds that's available to members, so that's still in the bank for you to use, and we really encourage you to use it, is $17.8 million. And then we also have 21 approved allocation agreements with $9.8 million. And we really encourage folks to, after you have completed your community cost share project, to submit your reimbursement request. We have seen this year that some folks not send in their reimbursement request in a timely manner, and we do want to get this money out to you so you can get it back into your accounts. And also please remember that have larger projects that is going to cost you more than what you currently have in your account, to consider allocation agreements. This is a great tool for you to, over let's say, a 5-year period, get reimbursed for the project that you implemented. And then we have had all 55 of our member communities use some or all of their community cost share, and we really thank you for participating in this program. An update on the local sewer system evaluation study. The Heights Hilltop study has been completed. Final reports are out. Folks are implementing and digesting the findings of that report. Then Mill Creek Interceptor. We are finishing up the final reports, and they're being reviewed and commented on by district staff as we speak. Also on the Cuyahoga Valley Interceptor study area, reports are being finalized and the final hydraulic analysis are being drafted for district staff review and comment on. And then the Cuyahoga River, the Southwest Interceptor study area, the second phase of that has started. We have, and we're finishing up with that. In 2021, we'll be getting all the alternatives done and reviewing the alternatives with the folks in that area so we can talk through the alternatives for the problem areas that we found. Excuse me. Then update on our member community infrastructure program funds. In 2020, as we have seen with COVID-19, and Frank Greenland mentioned earlier, we have seen about $40 to $50 million reduction in our wastewater program. The member community infrastructure program is funded out of the wastewater program, and that is why we had to unfortunately reduce the available funds for the 2021 program to $2.5 million. Out of the $2.5 million, we were able to select the top 7 projects that submitted. And this year we started with the design and construction category and the design only category. So in the design and construction category, we selected the top 3. And in the design only category, we selected 4 projects. So out of those 7 projects we funded, the top 3 categories here are the design construction, South Euclid, Maple Heights, and Lorain County were the top 3 screen applications. And so they were funded for a total of $1.7 million. And then we selected the top 4 community applications for the design only was Eastlake, Shaker Heights, and Palma had 2 projects for a total of $752,000. So the future of the MCIP program, this was the 5th year of the program, so the final year of the first round. We hope to have the MCIP funding back in place for 2021. Right now, as Frank mentioned, we are going through our rate study. The rate study will determine how much money will be available for the MCIP program in 2021, and hopefully the board will approve that for us so we can start up again next year with applications for design and construction and design only applications. It was we heard from many of you that you really liked the idea of having design and construction and design only applications. It worked very well this year, and we hope to continue with those two categories in the MCIP program. So just to summarize again, so everybody on the call knows who their watershed team leader is. I am the areas or communities in red. Donna Friedman is your watershed team leader in blue, and then Jeff Jowett is your senior watershed team leader in yellow. Please do not hesitate to contact us at any time if you have any questions, if you need clarification of your community cost share funds, how much you have, what you can use it for, and or any other questions that we can help you with. We are here to serve. Any questions? If you have questions, please type them in the chat box, or there's a question and answer at the bottom of your screen. We have Keith McClintock, the manager of the stormwater program on call. He's checking that for us. Keith, is there any questions?
There are not.
Well, if no questions, then I will move on to the next section, our special feature section. We're going to have Lila Zuckner, our project manager for property acquisition, present on where we are at this stage with our property acquisition program. Thank you, Lila.
Thank you, Myron. Hello, everyone. My name is Lila Zottner. Thank you for joining us today. As Myron said, I am the project manager for property acquisition with the Sewer District. So I handle property acquisition, fee simple, as well as easements for the stormwater program. So I just have 2 slides for you. You can read the program goals yourself. Most importantly, I wanted to just reiterate our process for property acquisition. Some of you may be familiar with it and may be new to others. So along the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see the basics of our process. Our process does begin with outreach. That's a conversation generally with the community to talk about the overall plan, assembly goals, the requirements for demolition, the expectations for maintenance, and so on. After we've done that initial outreach, we then assign a consultant to work with us. That's a right-of-way consultant. Currently, we work with 3 different consultants: OR Colon, Western Reserve, and West Creek Land Conservancy. Those are the folks that are on the ground, generally alongside of us, doing the outreach, the door knocking, talking to folks about property acquisition. Once we do have someone that is interested in going along in the process, the consultant then takes that over from a transactional point of view. They then continue with the resident. They take the property through an appraisal process. It's appraised by a third party. Then it's sent to a reviewer that makes sure that that appraisal approach was correct. From there, a fair market value offer is created and presented to the homeowner. If they do wish to go forward, that transaction then goes through our board of directors. Once it's approved, it will go into a traditional property closing. Once it's closed, a lot of folks choose to take advantage of our lease process. That allows someone to stay in the home generally for up to 6 months while they look for another home or look to relocate. During that time, it is free. However, they are expected to pay their utilities and take care of maintenance. Once someone moves out, our consultant then does a move out inspection, make sure the property is secure, turns off the appropriate utilities, and then continues to inspect the property generally every 3 weeks until it is demolished. That inspection is an interior as well as an exterior inspection. Finally, the property is demolished. The contractor that we currently use for demolition is the Cuyahoga Land Bank. So they are the ones that are going to be working with the communities individually on demo permits and appropriate inspections. Once a property is demolished, we then choose to create a small water resource project, or we may just maintain it as a vacant lot as we continue along in our land assembly towards a larger project. To date, this program has been very successful. We've acquired 41 properties and 86 permanent easements for a total investment of $8.5 million. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next, I was asked to highlight just one land assembly projects. We are working on many, but just one to share our success with you. So this is the Hemlock Creek Bank Stabilization Project in the Seven Hills community. The project seeks to realign a section of Hemlock Creek to reduce erosion, increase conveyance, and increase storage along this stretch of the creek. This is a larger assembly. It includes 12 privately owned properties. To date, we have acquired 9 of the 12 privately owned properties. 6 of them have been demolished, and the remainder will be demolished as folks move out of their leases. This has been a great success with several mutual benefits between the community and the district. One of the great things we are able to do is, as these properties are teed up for demolition and they're sitting vacant, we will oftentimes work with local groups, fire departments, SWAT teams, and the like to use the properties right before demolition for training. So we have a great track record of doing that. If any community is interested in that, we urge you to please just reach out to us so we can consider that and set it up. As you can see on the map, this outlines the larger area. There are 2 phases. The red properties have been acquired. The blue property was just went through our board, and the purple properties are future, what we hope to be future purchases. The green are what we expect to be easements that will be necessary for the project. So we have concluded phase 1 of land assembly. So we will be looking to start our design on phase 1, and then we'll be considering phase 2 for land assembly going forward. To date, our total investment has been around $2.4 million. We do expect by the time we are finished that the investment in property acquisition will be somewhere around $3.1 million. Thank you, and I will go ahead and pass it on to Paul.
Thanks, Lila. So in the past, the district has often used stormwater funds to help leverage state and federal grant money for projects that benefit the regional stormwater system. Specifically, we've made it a practice to provide matched funding for individual grant projects. These include, but not limited, they aren't limited to 319 funding, Sustain Our Great Lakes funding, Clean Ohio funding, coastal management and assistance grants, and the like. For 2021, we want to formalize this process for distributing matching funds for grants. For 2021 and beyond, we've designated $500,000 in matching stormwater funds available for grant-funded projects. Next slide, please. We'd like people to keep their requests to under $300,000 for individual projects. And what we'd like to see from you is a good project summary with some anticipated outcomes, a cost estimate with some line items and unit costs with the total cost, a concept graphic showing the work area, and hopefully this is along the regional stormwater system, of course, the dollar amount you're requesting from the district. As an alternative, you could use a project summary sheet from an existing 9-element plan for a non-point source implementation as a template, but we'd like to see a little more detail in the project description. As some of you know, this is required for 319 funding. And then email it to me. We'd like to receive all partner grant applications by the end of 2020. And what we will do is we will nominate each one to our stormwater construction plan and rank them among themselves. Funding will be distributed according to rank, and we can be available to assist with developing concepts, sediment nutrient budget, cost estimates, things that you would need for your project. We may provide in-kind services even if district funds are not awarded. And of course, projects must include design and construction that result in improvements to the regional stormwater system. And I will state more directly that this is for using stormwater dollars to leverage outside grant funding. It is not designated for funding projects outright. If you have any questions, you can email or call myself. If there are any questions related to what Lila or I just presented, Keith, let us know.
Sorry, had a hard time finding the mute button. Now, there are no questions as of yet.
Okay, then we can move on, and I'll introduce Rachel Webb to talk about the stormwater master planning efforts. Thanks.
Good afternoon, thank you. So Rachel Webb, I'm a senior project manager, and I've been working now for the last, I would say, 2 years on the stormwater master plan, the Cuyahoga River South and Cuyahoga River North. So there is some status update on those master plans. So the South, as you all have been aware, has been complete now for some time. The North is now complete as well. It was the second to have started. The Rocky River is on trajectory to be completed this November. And that leaves the Chagrin River Lake Erie Direct Tributaries Master Plan, which will continue through May of 2021. With that being said, the Cuyahoga River South Master Plan was the first done. You have heard me talk about this now from the very beginning. This is a little bit of a repeat. So slowly start to transition out of master plans and into stormwater design and construction for the projects identified. There were over 80 projects or problem areas, excuse me, that we've identified. All now have been nominated to the stormwater construction plan. In total, they were about $195 million in project costs. So with that being said, in terms of the nomination, there is a schedule of prioritization that occurs with that. So that is all taken into consideration every year as we review the stormwater construction plan. But just for this plan, all of that has been nominated. And that really is focusing on those system enhancement recommendations. So those regional stormwater problem areas, flooding, erosion, that fall under district responsibility. And we have, excuse me, that construction plan we prioritized, scheduled, we have identified for property acquisition, and/or we have some areas where we want to do some advanced stormwater planning. And in some situations, we may have deferred depending on more information being needed, but those are few and far between. So it's really where each of those system enhancements lies within that stormwater construction plan. Next slide. Just an example of what we're currently working on based on those recommendations and what's in the stormwater construction plan early on for design and construction. Here you have an image of the Chippewa Creek flood reduction project near Echo Lane. This is a project currently in design, and then you have 3 others listed, and these are projects that we've gotten started that came directly out of the master plan. So Chippewa Creek near Broadview Road, we have 2 in Hudson, specifically one where there were some recent community meetings on, which is the Barlow Community Center Dam improvements. So we are taking these recommendations and putting them into action. With that being said, as I mentioned, there were some additional recommendations for advanced stormwater planning. These were problem areas that had complex projects and complex components. The cost of the recommendations exceeded what we could implement within a specific outline of a budget. So we have some that are upwards of 12, 13, 20 million. And so we need to look at those and potentially break them into smaller projects to move into design and construction. And then problem areas or projects that require a bit more information to understand the full impacts of those recommendations. At the moment, we do not have any advanced planning started for Cuyahoga River South, but you will likely see some as we move further down the line with this project. So just back to just generally there's a lot of information that was generated with these master plans and will be generated with advanced planning. If you as a community are interested in any of this information, you have your own projects that you're looking at, and you would like access to any of this information, please contact us. We want it to have the most benefit that we can have with making access to this data. So there's CCTV, PACP reports, there's spherical imagery. This was one area that was done under a different master plan contract. It did not start off with the Cuyahoga River South contracts. You may not be as familiar. This is basically like Google Street View for the stream. So we have stretches where we had folks walking down the stream, so you can get access to that more or less street view of the stream. If you have any questions, what's happening there now. Granted, it's probably going back to 2018 or 19 for some of that video, but I think gives a very good representation of what's happening. So it's a great tool and use. And we just generally have a lot of information available on crossings and culverts. And then there's also the stormwater master plan models. Some of you have already contacted us about using those models for your projects. We continue to want to make those available as needed. And then obviously there's the report. You should all have a copy of your community report that was provided to you by your watershed team leader. There is the full report that can be made available as requested. It's quite large. So I say that as requested because it's not something you can simply email, but we are able to provide access to it if you are interested in it. With that, that is all I have really for stormwater master planning and advanced planning at this time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Rachel, I do not see any questions at this time.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to transition this over to Christina with stormwater inspection and maintenance. And she is going to go over, I think, the very interesting Labor Day stormwater event. So.
All right, thanks, Rachel. I'm Christina Celia. I'm a stormwater inspector in our inspection and maintenance group. And I'll go over a few things today, what the swim group has been up to this year, our inspection program and maintenance program, talk about culverted stream inspections, and the Labor Day storm event. All right. So far this year in the Cuyahoga River South alone, we've performed 226 inspections. Those are identified by those yellow dots. So we can see we've been all over the area. And these green dots identify our other responsible party assets. So these are crossings that are inspected and maintained by another agency. And there will be inspection reports available for these that we can utilize. Those agencies could be the railroad, could be ODOT, the Cuyahoga County, Turnpike, or the Metro Parks. Going into our maintenance program, so far this year, we have performed 28 maintenance tasks in the Cuyahoga River South. We've removed 394 cubic yards of debris and a little over 1,200 cubic yards of sediment. We have also performed 5 other projects. That includes 3 small-scale stream bank stabilizations, one on Bear Creek, one on Brandywine, and one on Indian Creek. And it also includes repairing some vault doors on a tributary to the Cuyahoga in Brecksville that got damaged after a storm event in March. So this is an example of one of the maintenance tasks we performed. This is after the March 30th event on Tinker's Creek in Valley View on Canal Road near the Towpath Aqueduct. We removed about 55 cubic yards of debris. That was a pretty common spot for debris to accumulate. And here's an example of one of our small scale stream bank stabilization projects. You can see this is in Bear Creek in North Randall. The photo on the left shows how the stream was scouring behind, that's a local stormwater outfall head wall. And so, we had some erosion impacting infrastructure. So we removed the head wall. We placed riprap along about 90 feet of the bank after we graded it back to a more stable slope, about 2 to 1. And we installed some live branch layering and some native plantings this month. We got that to be a more stable little stretch of stream. So comparing our maintenance from last year to this year, we've performed a few more projects this year, 214 versus 202 from last year. Volume-wise, we've removed a little bit less volume, both sediment and debris. Last year, we had some large sediment removal projects that we didn't see this year. We've kept up pretty well despite everything. Pretty similar numbers. Just an update on our culverted streams, give you an idea of the things that we're seeing. As the master plans are coming to completion, we've received the CCTV videos and PACP reports. And so we've gone through all of those and identified all the assets that have significant defects. And we are revisiting the ones that have significant defects. So we're actually performing CCTV again and making manned entries to verify the maintenance recommendations associated with those defects. To date, we have completed a little bit more than 68 inspections on those culverted streams out of 113. We've actually completed all of the follow-up inspections needed on culverted streams in the south, since that was the first master plan to come out. That was where we started. This is an example of one of the pipes that we looked at on a tributary to Tinkers Creek in Walton Hills. So as you can see, we do have, it's misshapen, rusted along the invert. We've got a lot of active infiltration, backfill visible. So in this case, we're gonna agree with the stormwater master plan recommendations of spot repairs within the reinforced concrete section, and then likely replacing the corrugated metal section just based on the significance of those defects. This is another example of a culverted stream that we looked at in Brecksville near Riverview Road. So again, as you can see, we've got that rusting along the invert. It looks like at some point someone tried to repair it. This culvert moves under private residential driveways. And then you can also see in the bottom right picture a patch made with, I think it's a volleyball sign and some spray foam. Just overall, a lot of really significant structural issues through this pipe. So it's likely beyond its service life. It's probably going to need replaced. It is located within an area that has a lot of flooding, so it may require, like Rachel said, some advanced planning in this area just based on the widespread flooding and erosion issues in that area. All right, on to our big Labor Day storm event. So overall, it was a service area wide event. But depending on where you were, you may have seen a little less than an inch to 4.55 inches over a 7-hour period. So this was, we didn't have a lot of rainfall over that short duration. It was really spread out. On average, that came out to about a 25-year interval. but in some areas that was a little bit less than a 200-year interval. So then breaking it down into the 1 hour frequency, about 0.76 to 1.67 inches was the range. So, you know, over the 1 hour, dropping down to a little bit less than the 10-year was the maximum rate that we got to, on average, about a 2-year. And then breaking it down to the 15-minute interval, the maximum was a little bit less than a 5-year recurrence. So on the Labor Day event, Big Creek was the only river to reach that major flood stage based on the USGS stream gauges. The Cuyahoga River in Independence and Mill Creek in Garfield Parkway reached the moderate flood stage, and no other USGS gauges reported reaching a flood stage. Sorry, could you go back one more? Sorry. The Labor Day event was the 4th highest recorded event based on those stream gauges in recorded history. And the September, May, and March 2020 events were all within the top 10 highest on record as well. So we have seen a lot of significant events this year. And this is just a photo showing Big Creek at Jennings Road down by Harvard. You can see the stream is supposed to be moving just in front of that building, but you can see that it's flooded the parking lot, reached the building. This was a customer photo just showing the stream, you know, accessing the floodplain. There was no infrastructure flooded shown in this photo, but just showing you, you know, the stream really reached out of its banks. And then another photo taken from the road showing the stream again out of its banks, reaching near a home. So during that Labor Day event, we completed 90 observation inspections. So we went and observed 90 locations to see how they were responding to the event. There were 29 maintenance work orders made of those 90 observations, and that resulted in about 812 cubic yards of debris removed at a cost of about $86,000. And we also received about 18 customer calls that we responded to. So this slide is comparing the March 30th event to the Labor Day event. So we performed about 20 more inspections during the Labor Day event, but fewer maintenance projects and a little bit less volume removed. That is expected. You know, the March 30th event was the first one after winter when we typically see all the deadfall accumulating. So it's not unexpected for the March event to have resulted in a little bit more debris, but both were really large events. And like Frank said, some of our largest debris removal numbers that we've seen in our program. If there's no questions, Keith?
There is not. There's one question for Rachel in the chat box. If she can answer that, that would be great. If not, we'll run it by everyone at the end of the presentation. So we'll turn it over to Kevin Fries with the Office of Emergency Management from Cuyahoga County.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Fries. I'm in charge of planning, training, and outreach for the Office of Emergency Management. And I'm here today to talk to you about what our office does, and especially related to damage and flooding and infrastructure. So our office is the designated emergency management agency for the 59 municipalities in Cuyahoga County. The city of Cleveland does have a separate office of emergency management, but they're more geared towards internal coordination of city departments during emergencies. Our office is responsible for maintaining multiple county-wide response plans, public outreach, resource coordination, completing damage assessments, which is what this is a picture of at Ursuline College in 2013 after a tornado or high wind event went through. And then we also have a drone program, a drone program that we will respond to assist in search and rescues, fires, and other events that could benefit from an aerial perspective. Our goal during peace times is really to encourage people to prepare for emergencies, to lessen the impact if and when disaster strikes. As for this audience, we're looking for your assistance in, letting us know about events that occur or incidents that occur within your area of responsibility, so that we can be better prepared to assist. Also, look at identifying areas of concern, mitigation projects for stormwater, among other items. Next slide, please. So there's always a perception versus reality, right? So on the left, we see what the perception of emergency management is, that our team only comes in during major disasters like hurricanes, et cetera. However, we're really here working to mitigate areas of concern within their jurisdiction through Homeland Security funded projects and LEPC, which is our local emergency planning commission projects to mitigate those concerns that we've identified during our planning process. Next slide, please. So what is emergency management? It's the process of preparing for, mitigating, responding to, and recovering from emergencies or disasters. The key to all of these phases of emergency management is coordination. A lot of our efforts surround identifying additional partners that we have not worked with in the past that could benefit from assistance in developing disaster plans or could assist in response during a disaster. And that's really how we ended up getting in touch with this group and getting on the agenda. Was conversations with other partners identified that this group of people could provide assistance in planning efforts and also response coordination. Next slide, please. So Cuyahoga County is one of the most populated counties in the state. It's approximately 1.2 million people in 59 municipalities, and those municipalities are covered by more than 60 police departments, 51 fire departments. The public safety answering point is actually now 28, 31 school districts, 19 hospitals, and more than 35 non-governmental organizations, 34 specialty teams, which include hazardous materials response teams, bomb teams, SWAT teams, urban search and rescue teams, 14 utility companies, and 8 colleges and universities. Next slide, please. We also are home to many international corporate headquarters. We have 3 airports and 3 top-tier hospital systems. We also have a number of federal installations within the county, most notably NASA Glenn Research Center. Next slide. So to support all of those people and those companies, we have billions of dollars in infrastructure, a lot of freight and passenger, not a lot of passenger rail, but a lot of freight comes through via railway, passing through to other parts of the country, as well as we have the Port of Cleveland. Along with that, we're a transportation hub in the Midwest. So we have 7 interstate highways, 5 U.S. roads, U.S. routes, 1,200 bridges, and more than 4,300 miles of municipal roads within the county. So what are some of the threats and hazards that we've identified for our county? The pictures here kind of show everything, right? We've had freezing rain, blizzards, tornadoes, earthquakes, rivers catching on fire, massive power outages, hurricane effects, and major flooding, as we discussed earlier on this call. We've also seen various organizations in the county become the subject of IT system failures and hacks. But as you can see on this slide, the large number of our presidentially declared disasters are actually related to flooding. Next slide, please. So because of this, we recognize that we really need to continually enhance our planning and coordination with more and more partners as time goes on. This is even more evident over the last 9 months in response and coordination to coronavirus with our various partners. Next slide, please. So, why are we here today? I'm here because during our conversations with the sewer district, we were told about these meetings and that it was a group of people we don't generally interact with. We wanted to make sure you were aware of what our role is related to damage and flooding and infrastructure, and that when disasters or incidents cause any damage, it's our job to collect as much information as possible so that we can determine if we would be eligible for a potential disaster declaration at the state and or federal level. There are 2 funding streams that can open up if we get a state or federal disaster declaration. Individual assistance is for our residents who have been impacted by the disaster, and public assistance is for governments and select nonprofit response partners to recuperate some of the expenses incurred in responding to that incident. Thus, when we're looking at it, we need to know how many structures are destroyed, suffered major damage, minor damage, or just were affected. We also need to identify what the municipal governments and our response partners have spent to respond to and recover from the incident. With that information, we compile it, make a preliminary determination, and then if it looks like we're eligible, we submit the package of information to the state for review and ultimately submission to the federal government. So to accomplish this, our organizational structure during non-response times, we're split into 2 divisions, operations and planning. Operations is responsible for maintaining the Emergency Operations Center in a fully ready state, coordinating those damage assessment teams that we were talking about, supporting the local Emergency Planning Commission, which is the Hazardous Materials Coordination Group. They also design exercises and provide general support to partners that are interested in hosting exercises. The planning section maintains over 100 different plans, coordinates training sessions for our partners in emergency planning and response, conducting outreach events, so actually going out into the community, and this was more pre-COVID, but actually going to home days, fairs, etc., to share preparedness information, maintaining our website and social media accounts. And then we also provide technical assistance and guidance for our community partners and agencies who are looking to develop or enhance their own planning efforts. A few of those plans that are of significance to this group are the All Hazards Mitigation Plan and the FIRA, which is the Threat Hazard Identification Risk Assessment, as well as the Stakeholder Preparedness Report, or SPR. The mitigation plan is a plan that makes us eligible for a couple different grant funding opportunities related to infrastructure and mitigation. So having all of our communities sign off on that plan and be part of the planning effort, plan development, as well as some of our nonprofit partners, allows us to be eligible for the BRIC, which is the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant, the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program, as well as the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. This plan has to be updated every 5 years, and we will be starting the next 5-year update in 2021. The SIRA and SPR enable us to apply for public safety grants through the Department of Homeland Security. Completion of these two also requires stakeholder input, which we usually obtain through the various committees of the Emergency Services Advisory Board. And one of those committees is the Public Works Committee. The committee has been less active in recent years, and we are hoping to reinvigorate it. So we are looking for people that are interested in joining that committee. If any of you are interested, please reach out to our office and we'll get you in touch with that committee. Next slide, please. So everything is run through the National Incident Management System when we are dealing with a disaster. So as local communities run out of resources or local agencies and normal mutual aid partners are exhausted, and those communities or partner agencies reach out to our office. In turn, we maintain databases of various resources within the county, and we search those for the needed resource. And if we can't find it within the county, we then reach out to neighboring counties as well as the state for assistance. If the resource isn't available within the state can then reach out to the federal government and other states if the resources aren't available within the state. So we've done this for a few incidents over the years. For the Arco landfill fire, it was a multi-day response and required a constant presence of firefighting equipment. So once their mutual aid was exhausted, they reached out to us, and we worked with the County Fire Chiefs Association to actually build out a schedule utilizing different communities' fire resources from around the county, not just their normal mutual aid partners. And then we've also used this for, planned events. So the presidential debate and the RNC are two large events that we've had state level assets in the area, and we'll likely be doing it again for the NFL draft next year. With that, are there any questions? Yeah, so in terms of training, there's a couple online resources that you can utilize through FEMA, but then we also maintain a training page on our website. So if you go to ready.cuyahogacounty.us, that will show any local trainings that we're hosting. And then, so again, that's ready.cuyahogacounty.us. And then the FEMA Emergency Management Institute also has a number of online incident command related training courses that are independent study. So you can do them at your own pace. So those are two major sources of emergency management training and exercise related material. Any other questions?
I do not see any, Kevin. Oh, wait, we do have one. Where can we go to learn more about your meeting? That's one you just answered?
Yep.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kevin, thank you for your time and for the presentation again today. Next up is our stormwater design and construction program. That's going to be presented to us by Anthony Calvich. He's the stormwater manager for construction. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Myring. Yes, like Myring said, my name is Anthony Calvich, manager of stormwater construction. I'm going to talk to you today about our stormwater design and construction program. One topic of discussion that has been important lately is project prioritization. We're going to take a walk through this Cartesian coordinate system you see in front of you. On the lower left-hand quadrant, we have our lower priority. So things that are a low number of assets when impacted, and they have a high level of service. So I would say that's like a road that may flood at the 100-year event. It's not very frequent, and it doesn't happen often, and there's not a lot of assets involved. If you move up to the left-hand upper quadrant, you're still working with a low number of assets, but a low level of service, meaning that same road may flood at the 2-year event. So it floods fairly frequently, so it gets more importance. Moving up again, we've got the right-hand lower quadrant. A high number of assets are involved, and they have a high level of service, meaning you may be dealing with a community of 50 houses, but they still have a high level of service. So, they don't flood until the 100-year event maybe. Of utmost priority, the highest priority in the upper right-hand quadrant would be a high number of assets. We'll talk about those same 50 houses community, but they flood maybe at the 2-year event. So the frequency has increased. There's a high frequency and a high number of assets involved. Those things currently are our highest priority. We always like to remind you about our stormwater story maps. If you go to NEORSD.org, under the business dropdown, doing business with us, stormwater construction program, you will find our story maps. In these story maps, you'll see design, construction, and completed projects. With lots of great information about all those things, their geographic location, dollar amounts, what they've done in the area. So it's just a lot of great information at your fingertips, and I encourage you to search that out and learn more about our program. Moving on to our design program. What you see in front of you is flooding, but flooding on purpose. So this is a completed project, and you're seeing a floodplain being activated. Downstream of this project is a road, and after this rain event, the community was surprised that the road did not flood, when typically during a rain event like this, it would have. So we acquired a lot of floodplain on this project. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the water receding, okay, after the rain event has subsided, and you see the vegetation we put in along with the sinuosity in the stream. The thing you don't see in this picture is on this, will be the left side of this picture is the sanitary sewer that we moved out of the stream's path also. So a very successful project, acquiring a lot of floodplain access and also moving critical sanitary sewer infrastructure out of the stream flow path, would mitigate any water quality problems we'd have associated with that sanitary sewer. Project currently in the design phase, recently bid. This is Pepperloose Creek at Lander Road. This is in the city of Pepper Pike. Got a lot of erosion problems that need taken care of. We've got some public utilities within the stream's path. I think we have septic systems out there also. We got some failed gabion baskets. So this is a great project. That'll be more of a naturalized stream restoration through here to mitigate the erosion problems you're seeing in these pictures, along with creating and expanding floodplain. You'll hear about that frequently with our projects. Creation of floodplain, the ability to keep water upstream until flows subside downstream, gives us the ability to reduce downstream flooding. So this will be a successful project. Another interesting project, this is the city of North Royalton. It's Ridge Road repair and Rocky River tributary stabilization. So the road you see is Ridge Road. There's a tributary to Rocky River that runs next to it. In the lower picture, you can see that the posts are undermined. They're not holding up the guardrail. The guardrail is holding up the post, which is backwards, right? The orange spray paint you also see on the road is actual deterioration of the roadway surface, sectional loss starting because of erosion due to that tributary moving so close to the road. A typical fix for something like this would be to hard armor this bank. And if we take a look at our next slide, we'll see our intended approach is not hard armoring. It's actually to move the stream away from the road. This is a technique to create green space in between the two, give it a little breathing room per se, let it access some more floodplain so it's not eroding so horribly, and it won't undermine that road if we can do that. We're going to use a lot of natural methods here, including tow wood, which should induce sedimentation along the bank next to the road and protect that roadway in perpetuity. Another project in design, this is Chippewa Creek near Broadview Road, city of Broadview Heights. Okay, it's similar to some of our other projects. It's going to be a stream restoration project. We're going to stabilize banks through here using naturalized methods. We've got a threatened sanitary sewer. We've also got failed gabion basket retaining wall. We see a lot of those throughout the district. So we're going to try to arrest this erosion here. Another component to this project will be creating floodplains. Same principle, right? We're going to try to create floodplains and take the peak off the hydrograph. Try to mitigate some of the downstream effects. Here we have Big Creek Upper Ridgewood Basin modifications in the city of Parma. This is a city-owned basin. We're doing some planning here to see how this basin can benefit the regional system by increasing its storage. This is the same topic of discussion, increasing storage, keeping water from going downstream too quickly, to try to mitigate those downstream impacts that the high flows are having downstream, and try to keep them back a little bit so that you can flatten the curve of the hydrograph. This is a project that's currently in construction. We're nearing the end of construction. On the top of this bank is a nursing facility. This is on West Creek in the city of Parma. This nursing facility was threatened by erosion, and we had some of the infrastructure falling into the stream. West Creek in this section of Parma is very channelized and surrounded by a metropolitan area, very built up area. There's not a lot of opportunity to acquire floodplains in this area. So when we don't have the opportunity, we do hard armor a bank, and this is what this is. It's a retaining wall, soldier pile, and concrete lagging. There's also a 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot boulder toe detail for this wall. So it's a robust wall that will continue to protect this community and their infrastructure. So the stream and the nursing facility may live next to each other. This is Donebrook Culvert debris removal. The top leader in the text box here is right next to the Cleveland Museum of Art. We did a project here to arrest erosion downstream of where this culvert is. It was a very successful project, and during the project, we noticed debris blockages within the culvert. So we went back to our board and we decided to go up into the culvert and remove 450 cubic yards of material that were blocking the culvert. We finished that project. Everything was good. The master plans came back saying that there's more debris in this culvert. And you couldn't see it. It was 1,500 lineal feet upstream next to Euclid Avenue. So that's the next portion, or that's this project specifically to go into this culvert, remove another 700 cubic yards of debris. This is a picture of that debris. We're calling it debris. It's mostly river rock, rubble, concrete, all kinds of things like that. Heavy, big material that has to get moved from within this culvert. So it's an arduous process, but I think it's well worth the effort. The master plans also concluded that removing this debris would take this culvert from a 2-year level of service and return it to its 10-year level of service it was designed for. So it's going to be a major improvement. Hopefully we see some positive impacts in that University Circle community with regards to flooding and the like. This picture here actually shows a finished project of ours in Pepper Pike. The leaders from this photo kind of show next to the road where we had demolished a house. We've acquired floodplain in that area. We've changed the alignment of the stream to mitigate its erosive forces, and done a nice stream restoration through this area. It should be stable now. This is how the projects look once they start to green up. another successful project for us. With that, I can take any questions.
I do not see any. Thank you, Tony.
Okay, well, with no questions, I bid you adieu and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Anthony. It's very well presented there. Thank you to all our presenters today. We really appreciate your time and effort that it takes to put these presentations together and for all the work that you do out there. I'm just going to finish us up by looking ahead a little bit and just reminding everybody of a couple of things that we would like to work with you on and your residents and our customers. One of those things that I just want to remind you about is our cost savings programs that we have at the district. For our crisis assistance, this is for sanitary bills. Up to $300 of credit is available once a year, once every calendar year, for folks that have experienced some hardship of loss of job, loss of a family member, or any other medical expenses, that unforeseen medical expenses that they may have. They can contact our customer service department, or you can have them just contact me directly, or Donna Friedman, or Jeff Jowett, whoever is your Watershed team leader, and we can assist them in applying for this crisis assistance. Also, some other programs we have for cost savings for your residents and our customers. Our homestead program are for folks that are 65 and older, or permanently disabled. Mainly it focuses on households that have a household income of $33,500 or less per year. They can apply for this homestead program, and it's very helpful for a lot of these folks. Then also the affordability program is for an annual income of if you have below 200% poverty level, you can also qualify for some additional assistance in our affordability program. For all of these programs, they can contact the customer service department, or again, Watershed team leader. Right. And that's all that I have. If you have any questions, if you need any education material, if you need any brochures or information on our cost effective programming, cost savings programming, or anything else, please contact your Watershed team leader. We're happy to drop those materials off at your office for you, or mail them out to customers who are in need. And if there is no more questions, I can adjourn our meeting.
Yes, I do not see any other questions. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for attending the last advisory committee for Cuyahoga River South for the year. We hope you are safe and sound, and we hope to see you all virtually or in person in March of 2021. Thank you.